You know those people who just have this incredible presence? They walk into a room and they're not loud, they're not trying to be the center of attention, but you feel their energy. They have absolutely nothing to prove. It's this quiet, solid confidence. So, let's get into how you can build that for yourself. But maybe that sounds totally out of reach right now. Maybe you spend most of your days feeling like you're just playing a part. You go along, you smile, you nod, but with every little forced laugh, you feel a tiny piece of yourself just kind of vanish. It's this quiet, draining feeling, like you're disappearing in plain sight. See, from a really young age, most of us learn this dangerous lesson. To be liked, we have to be likable. So we start editing ourselves, right? We put on a mask, this polished, agreeable, easy to deal with version of who we are. And sure, that mask feels safe, but it's also incredibly fragile. It leaves us feeling totally disconnected, always terrified that someone might see the real, messy person hiding underneath. And that right there, that's the trap. We were basically trained to believe our worth is conditional, that it depends on us being flawless. We were taught that any imperfection isn't just human, it's a defect, a flaw that has to be hidden at all costs. Because if anyone saw the parts of us that were too loud or too sensitive or just too much, well, they might leave. Just look at this trade-off for a second. On one side, you've got authenticity, being real, speaking your mind, being messy but feeling whole. And on the other side, that endless chase for approval, staying quiet just to be accepted, looking all polished on the outside but feeling so fragile on the inside. The real cost of always choosing approval is just constant, exhausting performance. So, what if we just reframed this whole idea? What if the things you call your flaws, your intensity, your awkwardness, your messiness, what if they aren't defects at all? What if they're just the raw, unrefined, beautifully human parts of your soul? They're what make you real. They are literally the cracks where your true light gets to shine through. Now, to really get what's going on inside, we gotta turn to the psychologist Carl Jung. He had a name for all those parts of ourselves we try to hide away. He called it the shadow. And actually meeting that shadow self, that's the first real step to becoming whole. Now, here's the thing you really need to get. The shadow isn't some evil monster. It's just everything we've disowned about ourselves. It's the anger we were told was rude, the fear we were told was weak, the ambition we were told was unattractive. It's all the perfectly normal human stuff that we learned was unlovable, so we just shoved it into the dark. And this quote from Jung it nails the problem perfectly. Pushing these parts of ourselves away doesn't make them go anywhere. Jung warned that whatever we resist, whatever we shove into the shadow, it doesn't just stick around, it gets stronger. It starts running the show from behind the scenes, pulling the strings without us even knowing it. So how can you tell if your shadow's got a little too much control? Well, look for the symptoms. It's that constant overthinking, that hamster wheel in your brain you can't get off of. It's that obsessive need to be perfect. It's that weird pattern of self-sabotage right when things are finally going well. And yeah, it's that loud, relentless inner critic. These aren't just random quirks. They're signals from the parts of you that you've exiled. Okay, so if fighting our flaws just makes them stronger, then what are we supposed to do? What's the alternative? Well, Jung's whole philosophy points to a completely different goal. It's not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. And this is probably the most important idea we're going to talk about. Real, unshakable confidence. It doesn't come from erasing your flaws or creating some perfect mask. It is born from the courageous act of turning around, facing the parts of you that you were taught to hate, and finally welcoming them back home. This whole process has a name: integration. But don't let the fancy word throw you. Just think of it as this lifelong journey of finding and reclaiming all those lost pieces of yourself. It's about taking off the mask piece by piece and finally becoming the person you were always meant to be, not the polished version you performed for everyone else. This quote from Jung really says it all. The goal isn't to be good by someone else's definition, agreeable, quiet, easy. The goal is to be psychologically whole, to be real. Even if that means you're a little more complex, maybe a little more difficult, and a lot more honest. All right, so how do we actually do this? I mean, understanding the theory is one thing, but living it is something else entirely. Radical self-acceptance isn't some one-time decision you make. It's an active, daily practice of choosing yourself over and over again. Okay, so just look at the two sides of this coin. On the left, that's the old habit, performing, constantly chasing validation, apologizing for just existing, saying yes when every part of you is screaming no. And on the right, that's the new practice, protecting your real self, choosing your truth, setting actual boundaries, and saying no without feeling like you owe anyone a 5-page explanation. So, what can you do, like starting today? It's simpler than you might think. First, just try to notice how often you say sorry for things that don't need an apology. Second, practice saying no to something that just doesn't feel right. And then resist that powerful urge to over-explain yourself. And third, give yourself permission to be seen exactly as you are, not the polished version, but the messy, awkward, wonderfully real you. And every single time you do one of these small things, something huge happens inside. You send this powerful message to the deepest part of yourself. You're basically saying, hey, I'm on your side now. You are building trust with yourself, and that is the real foundation of confidence.
Now, I gotta be real with you for a second. This path, it's not always easy. Becoming more authentic, more yourself, it comes with a cost. It can feel uncomfortable, and yeah, it will definitely change the world around you.
As you start to show up as your real self, you'll notice things start to shift. Some relationships, especially the ones that were built on you being small and quiet, they might not survive. But you know what else you lose? That urge to over-explain everything, the guilt you feel for saying no, and that constant soul-crushing exhaustion from performing all day. You're shedding a weight you didn't even realize you were carrying.
You might feel a sting of loneliness at first, and please, please hear me on this. That is not a sign that you're failing. It's better to think of it like a detox. Your system is literally going through withdrawal from a lifelong addiction to people-pleasing. It's a necessary and temporary part of healing.
So instead of running from that discomfort, try to lean into it, because that feeling, that's not a setback. That is the feeling of a foundation being built brick by brick. Every single moment you stand in your truth, despite how uncomfortable it feels, you are building an inner core so strong that no one's opinion or judgment can ever shake it again. And that really leads us to the final, most important question. It's a trade-off, right? Are you willing to be misunderstood by other people so that you can finally truly understand yourself? Are you willing to let go of being admired in exchange for just being real? Because in the end, that's the real choice. It's not between being flawed or being perfect. It's between performing for approval or living in your own truth. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is wholeness.